Welcome to a joint planning and development subcommittee town council meeting on Tuesday, February 25th, 2025. It's now 6 p.m. We're here in the Veterans Room at Town Hall. It's possible a quorum of town council may be present and discuss the agenda items, but voting rights shall be limited to subcommittee members in attendance. That was called to order. Item number 2 is roll call. Councilor Marquetti.
Present.
Councilor Kelly.
Present.
Citizen member Brendone is excused, and citizen member LaRochelle is excused. We have a quorum. At this time, I'll take a motion to move agenda item number 6 to the next agenda item to be discussed.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor? Thank you very much. Okay. The agenda item to be discussed. Review, discuss the submission of a Housing Works choice expression of interest for $5 million to build bridges and pedestrian-friendly infrastructure at the Southbridge Innovation Center, and if approved, proceed with the full application and authorize the town manager to sign all related paperwork. Entertain a motion to recommend to town council for approval.
Motion.
Second.
Very good. We have a motion and a second. We have with us this evening Mr. Chip Norton from the Southbridge Innovation Center, and he'd like to say a few words if we agree to it, so I think we're all set.
Well, thank you so much for having me, greatly appreciated. Just to refresh folks' memory, Southbridge Innovation Center, 1.2 million square foot complex. It was the former American Optical Complex back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. I've been redeveloping the property for a number of years, and we have left to go about 500,000 square feet of space, a portion of which is now permitted and approved for residential housing through the state's affordable housing program. We basically have 2 projects on the drawing board. One 2535 K Street, which is 127 units, which have been approved by the town through special permit process, and we are now at the final throes of getting approved from the state's perspective to commence construction, hopefully first quarter of 26. The first phase of the project, 48 units, 5 K Street, was developed and delivered in 2023. 48 units, over 500 applications, and an extremely successful project. To go along with the residential projects, we're also working on a master plan for the park, which would not only support the residential development, but create a town common, a town recreational area of 60+ acres, unseen in any place in central Massachusetts. We're looking at a $7 to $10 million development, creation of walking, biking trails, access to the Quinebaug River, roadway and bridge upgrades, public amenities, and greater pedestrian connections. I talked a little bit about the units. Phase 2 is 2535 K Street, which is slated for hopefully approval from funding from the state in the next 6 months. And right behind that is 4050 Optical, which has been approved by the town through the special permit process. That is now beginning through the state approval process for affordable housing. Similar units to phases 1 and 2. These are high quality units, superior in the marketplace for below market rents, and they're designed specifically for a workforce environment. Somebody makes a median income of $40,000 to $50,000 a year, and is able to access high quality for affordable pricing. Tonight what we're talking about is really an initiative to redevelop the park utilizing public funds. And the way we would do that is basically convert the park to a public easement, so have public access for town folks as well as anybody from the surrounding area, open dusk to dawn, and a full recreational, pedestrian friendly park, biking allowed, trails, bike trails, that sort of thing. As part of the land transition, we then also would work with the town to access public funds to make the improvements. By doing the public easement, it allows us to work with the town and the town to access funds to do the upgrades. The funds that we're talking about will not take away from any other projects that the town has in mind. It will not impact services. It will not basically come out of the town's pocket. in any manner, shape, or form. It'll be supported through state and federal public funds, with the town acting as the access point or the intermediary to access those funds. Next are just a couple of pictures you can see of what some of the improvements are. Pedestrian trails, bike trails, a full walking continuity through the park from one end to the other. This is something that was very important with the planning board and the approval of these residential projects, that we also set up a connecting network, a pedestrian-friendly connecting network throughout the park. So that's a major part of the project. Also includes water access as well as walkways, pedestrian-friendly deck areas near the river, and as I said, a continuity of access throughout the park. The benefits to the town, of course, the developer will continue to own the land, be responsible for upgrades and maintaining the land as he currently does, they currently do, pay taxes, of course. The land would be converted into a public park using funds for park improvements, including, as I said earlier, better access, improved sidewalks, bike lanes, upgrading lighting, amenities such as bike trails, and a playground, numerous playgrounds for adults as well as kids. The funding source we're looking at is a program called Housing Works, which is recently established by the governor's office as part of their $5 billion program to deliver affordable housing across the state to maintain a workforce and make Massachusetts more livable. As the Housing Works program is designed and aligned to go along with specific residential projects and basically provide support infrastructure for those projects. So by way of us accessing this, the town gets two benefits. It helps promote the residential development, which has already been approved for development, but also provides the town with an actual recreational park that they can fully utilize as a public park. The eligible applicants are Massachusetts municipalities for this program. So town of Southbridge qualifies as a partner to access these funds. In discussions with the town, we are not aware of any other residential project that's as close to moving forward and as large scale as what we have here at the Southbridge Innovation Center. So really, our project is tailor-made for this funding source. And the town, I won't speak for the town, they can speak for themselves, but my understanding is there's no other recreation, or there's no other housing project, residential project that's on the drawing boards ready to move forward that would access or utilize these funds. As I said, the funding is available for infrastructure projects specific to housing development in public or private land. Eligible activities include not only limited design, construction, repair, and other improvements to infrastructure, advanced planning, or pending housing developments. And the types of infrastructure we're talking about are consistent with the program: road upgrades, pedestrian improvements, bridge improvements, bike lanes, those sorts of things. There's no set minimum or maximum. What we understand right now is $5 million is somewhat the maximum for the program as it currently sits. We would work with the town to access the full amount given the size of the project. We're aware of one award, about $3 million in the Worcester area for a project that was about half the size of our development. So we believe that given the number of units we're talking about between phases 2 and phase 3, that we would qualify for the maximum amount. And it may not be funded all at once, it could be funded over multiple years, but the idea is to get in and access the funds early on and get a commitment for this project. I think that's an important point to raise, is that this is a new fund. It's going to be highly desirable, and you just never know how long these funding opportunities run. It's not like MassWorks, which is an established program. It's there year in, year out with a certain amount of funding mechanisms available. This is a new program. It's specifically for housing, and it's tailor-made for what we're trying to do here with the town of Southbridge, to not only support residential, but convert the area into a recreational park for the town. The Housing Works program aims to assist communities with high housing demand and insufficient infrastructure capacity. So once again, a good fit for what we're trying to do here. Through utilization of these funds, municipalities will be able to encourage the expansion of communities' affordable housing supply and support economic growth and vitality. And that's the idea here, is that this can become not only a placeholder for residential development, but also a tourism, a economic boon for the town. We're tied into the bike trail as it stands now. By opening up the park, the Southbridge Innovation Center, that's a continuation of the bike trail into 50 to 60 acres, and then a continued connection at the Rotary up into town to support, once again, more retail activity. So really a whole sort of network opportunity, bike trail, Southbridge Innovation Center, and then ultimately into town to promote tourism and economic development. Timeline is expression of interest submission by the end of March. Grant applications are due June 4th. Anticipation of award will be the fall of '25, and contracting commencement could start as early 26. So we have a little bit of, obviously, sensitivity. This is a once-a-year sort of program application process. So the hope is that we can work through this process with the town, work out any differences we've got, and be in a position with the town to apply for these funds by early June. And that's the summary.
That's the summary. Very good. Councilors, do you have any questions or comments?
Well, I just, do you have any feeling that we actually might get this, that you actually might get this grant?
We qualify. There's no reason we wouldn't. We've been in direct contact with the Housing Authority and the folks involved in the fund, and they've been very supportive. The project fits perfectly with what it was designed to do, which is basically support infrastructure with residential projects. And in this case, we can also piggyback it into a development of the park into a common public access program. So it's really a double win for the town.
And how long, if you know, how long has the AO complex, how long has that been idle? Do you know offhand?
Yeah, because I've been here most of the time. The buildings that we have slated for residential have sat vacant for 20 plus years, for the most part. But once again, we now have our permits to go forward with a residential, so it's not really a question of is there an alternative use. This is the use. They're permitted now to move forward with it. They fit perfectly into the state's affordable housing program. Mill buildings, large windows, some industrial feel, some older feel to them, all fits within what the state's trying to do, which is take these buildings and put them back in service for residential use.
And you have tried other options, manufacturing, nothing seems to want to come into these buildings, so.
For these two buildings, this is the highest and best use, there's no question about it.
All right.
Because of their multi-story dimension and the way they lay out for residential use. I mean, they're naturally suited for residential design.
And now the town match, is what we are doing now, is that gonna be sufficient, or are we gonna have to do more? Like we're
Match
doing
for,
that grant, it said 10%, I think, town match.
there's gonna be no town action.
No
If
match?
there's any commitment, financial commitment, I'll make it. I'm not asking the town to make any financial commitment.
Okay. Well, I mean, this looks like a good thing to me. Those buildings have all sat idle for so long, and if we can make use of it something like this, I'm all for it. Especially in this town, we have a shortage of housing and rents are high, and I think that building some home, some places for people to live and keeping them affordable, I think this is a good thing, so I'm supportive.
Councilman.
I'm also,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you. No, I agree. I think this is a great use of the space and the property. So I think some people confuse affordable housing with subsidized housing, and if you could just explain the difference
Sure.
for me, thank you.
Sure. So, the housing rents are set by the state. The applicants have to have a job. The pricing is based on a median income of $40,000 to $50,000, so it's somebody or a couple that's working, generating that kind of money. And you have to qualify, basically you have to be able to afford to pay for the unit and pay for it. The beauty of it is the rents are 60 to 80% in any of that range as to market. So they're high quality units for basically very affordable pricing. That's the whole idea.
Great.
So,
Great. And we've been talking a lot about the housing issues in town lately, so I think this is a great thing. It just could clarify for me one thing, what the size of the units, what are they gonna consist of? Are they gonna be one, two,
and 3
three
bedrooms.
Okay.
Fewer 3 bedrooms. These are mostly, as I said, would be young couples, workforce sort of design. So might be a family with one, but limited on 3 bedrooms, primarily 1s and 2s make up the majority of the units.
And there would be occupancy limits in those units as well?
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
Of
thank you.
course. Yeah, there's very strict guidelines for the units, how they can be used, because it's all set by the state. So there's very specific management requirements for the management company. I mean, these are very well-run properties.
Okay, great. Thank you. No further.
just one last thing, I mean, not really a question, but I just think that having all these housing units so close to the police department and to the fire department, I think, man, that's a great ideal location for the use of this. Rather than having something so far out to the edge of town, it takes forever to get out there and if anything happens. So these are right centrally located. It's a huge area. It's a great place for housing.
Walkers into the downtown area. Sorry.
No, you're right. That's it. Thank you.
Mr. Manager?
Thank you, through you. I'd just like to thank Chip for, I mean, I think in this go-around, he really had a team too that came out and listened to residents. You know, the outreach that he had with his consultants that came to the senior center, community center, met with department heads to talk about their concerns and what were the biggest concerns, right? We know that the housing has already been approved, so that is going forward. So how could we maximize whatever resources that we would have through a grant approach to help with some infrastructure, especially the bridges? And that was the biggest concern, I think, with the police and DPW at the time, was the access to the property and making sure that we have that. And then, as we have talked in the past, and Chip has heard, I think our vision pretty clearly is how would this complex mirror into the rail trail, into the complex, back out, and the fact that residential units would come, and the fact that this is a funding source that we would not be in competition to, unlike the past MassWorks, where we, with their support as well, is how does that, all those housing units mirror into economic development in the downtown area? Because with that many residential units, now you have a walkable downtown area, rail trail, and they could get up to different ways and revitalize that with the next application that's going to come through, where we talked about redevelopment of the Central Street, Hamilton Street, outside of the TIP project on a MassWorks. So I think it all kind of fits into a vision of how we want to see the town develop economically as well. So I thank him for that work. So.
I think Jack kind of answered my question. All the units have already been approved.
Correct.
it's been in front of the planning board, right? It's gone to the planning board, they've
Yes,
issued everything.
we
pending.
received our special permit for 260 plus units.
Okay.
So if I could just follow up on
Sure.
to Councilor Shaney's point, that was the big driving point, right? We know that they've already been approved, so there's no, they're approved, they're coming. How can we now use other resources to improve the infrastructure? And we just all, I know as part of the planning board was, a study of the intersection later on traffic impact and some other resources.
So I think part of the issue out there is the fact that some people don't understand the fact that the permit has already been issued for the apartments. It's not like, it happens with or without.
Correct. Yeah. And that's why, how is our goal gonna be to take that and strengthen it and make it the best type of facility around?
Any other questions?
No, that was it. He answered his answer.
Very good.
Now, I would like to add that I think, as I said earlier, maybe I didn't quite say it succinctly, this is like a double win for the town. It's not only to promote the residential, but the town's gonna walk away with basically a 60-plus acre recreational park at no cost. This is a pretty unusual opportunity for a town like Southbridge to have, not only for its own community, but it's gonna be a terrific tourism attraction. It will definitely draw people in from outside the area between the bike trail and just people driving to this kind of environment. It's pretty special. It's something that town would be extremely proud of, and they'll have forever. So it's a great opportunity for the town, not only to support the residential, but also provide that community with a terrific recreational opportunity.
Within walking distance.
Yeah.
Right.
Hey, you got something you'd like to add?
Sure. I think that Jack said it very well. Speaking of the amenity, if we think about all of our vision lining up as the school comes out of receivership and our reputation, the school's reputation improves, when young families come to town and they're looking for whether this town fits them, having an amenity like that is it's a very strong lure. Right? A young family sees that and thinks that's wonderful for their kid, and that's how we really start to draw in the newer families to the town. So I think it's a wonderful opportunity. I'm grateful. There's a couple of clarifications. I think Chip said it'll be open from, did you mean dawn to dusk?
Dawn, dusk to dawn.
Yeah, and I think
Sorry.
Councilor Mike Heidi mentioned where he asked the question of whether it's been marketed. We've heard from Chip and his team a few times now how aggressively they tried to market the buildings for manufacturing and commercial over the years. When he says highest and best, that's not for him, that's highest and best for the developers, obviously, when they're coming in to look at uses. And we can't steer what a private developer wants to do with those properties, unfortunately, as hard as he has tried. And so I think that that's an important component of this whole story. The other piece I feel like is important to emphasize is that I think what's been misunderstood all along is that this was always Chip's intention, it sounds like. It's just that it's coming along later, right? He's doing the housing and he had as part of his big master plan doing these campus upgrades eventually. However or whenever it's sort of lined up with the rest of the projects. And I do feel like it is very opportunistic of us to be able to take advantage of the Housing Works application because, like Chip said, it feels tailor-made for us. I think that the story of taking, the 1.5 million in MassDOT for the rail trail and the 2.6 in the EDA grant, leveraging that with this other grant funding will be, it'll make the application even stronger.
Okay, and I'd just like to make a couple of points, if I could, for the public at home watching this. That area, the complex, has taken a lot of time and effort and sweat equity, I guess you could call it. There's been over $150 million invested in that area already, and we're talking about another large sum of money to be invested into the area as well. So I think that's a major sign of a commitment to the town of Southbridge that Southbridge Associates has had. I think it just says a lot. You're talking $750,000 in taxes annually You're talking of perhaps another $300,000 or $400,000 in taxes annually when all is said and done. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars in building permit fees for the work that's going to be done, and that potentially can be done with this. But when you dream in phases. This is a multi-phase project, and you start by taking one bite out of the elephant and work your way through. And I think we're halfway through the elephant at this point. And I'd like to dream and be able to dream that we can finish the elephant, that we can consume it. If you're talking a 60-acre park in basically the center of Southbridge, adjoining our rail trail, I just can't think of anything better than saying that that's a gift to the town of Southbridge to go on to the end of the 21st century. If you want Southbridge to be a destination, if you want people to come to Southbridge and know what Southbridge is about, then I think this project, along with the rail trail, along with the design and development work that we're looking at for the downtown, for the center core, for how, as I mentioned last night, there are improvements that are starting to be made down on Mill Street, so the Globe section is being affected now. I think when you dream big and you take small bites at a time, you can eventually begin to see the progress. And I would like to ask the citizens in town to look for that, to look for the individual increments of progress that we've got going on, to see how people that have come into town, the elected officials in town, the appointed officials in town have all kind of dreamed together, dreamed the same dream of improving the town and making it someplace special, someplace that people would want to come to. As Peg had said earlier, someplace where you're going to want to come and raise your family. I'd like Southbridge to be a destination. This kind of project is a big step forward. It takes a large bite out of that elephant. And I can't say enough about it. And I hope that you, the citizens, as you review this, will make your own personal decisions about it and let us know how you feel about it. But I know that I'm very positive about it, and I will support this measure tonight. Are there any other comments or concerns that anyone has? Ms. Dean?
I don't know if it would be helpful for the public to know that this will likely not go to the next town council meeting, but is slated for March 17th.
I believe it's 17.
And so that allows for opportunity for questions and concerns to be addressed between now and then.
All right, and that fits your time frame.
Absolutely, sure.
Great. Okay, any other concerns? Very well, there being no further discussion, all those in favor? Anyone opposed? No, unanimous of all present. Very good.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Chip.
Thank you,
Greatly
Chip.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll give you 30 seconds to get yourself together.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chip.
Thank you, sir.
Can you get that email address for the
I
table?
sent it already to them.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Good night.
Okay, moving back to the regular order of business. Agenda item number 3 on tonight's agenda, review, discuss entering into a contract with Nancy Selvage in response to the town's call for art funded by New England Foundation for the Arts, and authorize the town manager to sign all related paperwork. Entertain a motion to recommend to town council for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, very good. We have a motion and a second. Mr. Manager. Okay.
I'll defer these to,
Meg, why don't you come up and have a seat?
So I had invited the artist to be by virtual if she needed to answer any questions, but I haven't seen her hop on to the call yet, so I don't think she made it on.
Okay.
Hopefully I could answer any questions you might have. We received a New England Foundation for the Arts grant for $15,000, and we're taught how to go out for a call for art and be able to discriminate against who you choose and not have to pick the lowest quote, which is in procurement a novelty. So, for instance, with the mural downtown, we didn't know how to do this at the time, so we had to go out for quotes and try to figure out how to get an artist that we liked enough, but that came in a quote low enough that we would, get something that we really liked. This, the way it works is if you create the contract that states that this is for public enjoyment, it's for the public's use, public's benefit, that justifies being able to choose the artist. And so we, went through this course. We learned how to do the proper call for art so that we could then choose the artist. We had 2 artists. One was a local, Simone Germain, who's very involved in the 111 Wells, the Wells Art Center, the Wells Art Center. We had this second one come in from this artist, Nancy Selvage. And we feel like we're getting a very good deal out of the one for Nancy Selvage. This is a piece of art that they, in the grant, said is temporary. It's not expected to last a long time. We believe that this will probably have the longest shelf life. And it met our criteria of something kinetic or something that either incorporates with it from itself, incorporates movement or allows for movement. So the way that it's this open-shaped sneaker that you can walk in and out of, it allows for people to interact with it. I think it's a great opportunity for the town to be able to decorate the 76 Central Pocket Park right at the entrance of the new La Rochelle section. And it will be, there's already a granite curb that we laid down when we did the Pocket Park in anticipation of this grant. The DPW will help install it. Pete Provencher, we asked him a year ago if he would be willing. He said yes, and if we agree to this, we've already gotten all the funds front-loaded. We're just waiting to pay the artist to install. So it would happen over the next few months.
Good. Councilors? Mr. McKay.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. First of all, when I look at this artwork, it looks like something out of a Salvador Dali painting. And I'm not quite sure that that's a fit for Southbridge. It's just something that I wouldn't want to be looking at. It just looks weird to me. Second of all, it looks like something that if it's made out of stainless steel, it's going to get very, very hot in the summertime. And I could see somebody getting burned on it. And in the wintertime, it's going to get extremely cold. Well, I don't think it would be too safe then either. So I'm just looking at this thing, and I think I'd like to see the other person's submission before I voted on this. It's just like something I think is just a waste of money, really. That's my opinion, honest opinion. Thank you.
Very good. Councilor?
I don't know, I like art, so I like to see art in all its forms. So I think it's kind of neat, frankly. I can see how people will interact with that. I think that's a good question, though, that Councilor Marchetti raises is, based on materials being used, is this going to be safe? Is it going to burn people in the hot summer sun? Are people going to freeze to it in the wintertime? Just questions I think maybe we should answer. So, but I'm in principle certainly like the idea of putting some public art out there. It's a good idea. Thank you.
Very good. Go ahead, Councilor.
I go to Boston often, and I see all that type art. I don't understand it, but I see it all over the place because I go down Longwood Ave and Huntington Ave, Dana-Farber. I see it all there, and just my question is, who designed it? The artist herself? And she made the submission? So if you go down through down through Huntington Ave, you'll see a lot of those metal structures at the Fine Arts, and on the right-hand side going into Longwood Ave and that kind of stuff, so, I think they've had the same, probably questions about the material that it's being made of, but it's there. If you go down to the AO, you see the big eyeglass frame. It's not wood, it's metal. So I haven't seen anybody get burned there yet, so I just, as much as I don't care for that particular art, I think it's something that would help the town out very much. So I would support it at council meeting.
Very good. Ms. Dean?
It does look like it has almost like a mesh with holes in it, so I imagine that by design keeps it cooler. But I, by all means, could ask the artist to respond in writing about temperature issues. With regard to the other artist, I would be happy to share with you, this was their mock-up submission from Simone Germain, if you'd like to look at it. And one of the concerns from the committee, the selection committee, was the safety of this one because it had these rays coming out from the structure, and it has railroad ties coming out from the other side. And so they were concerned that that was probably a bit of a liability. So they saw the other one as less of a liability than this.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you.
And the selection committee was not, it was not just the redevelopment authority. There were other community members that were brought in to participate as well.
Amazing how somebody's vision of a sneaker, I don't know how that looks like a sneaker, but.
I see it. I see
I
it.
also think it's gonna be covered in graffiti within a month.
But there is, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
There is a, in the proposal, there is a
Cleaning.
cleaning and graffiti, and it actually comments on graffiti.
Okay. Any further comments? Very well. All those in favor? Those against? 2-1. Okay, item number 4, review, discuss the submission of an urban agenda grant for $50,000 to reconstruct the pocket park at Main and Central Streets, and authorize the town manager to sign all related paperwork, and entertain a motion to recommend to town council for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Peg.
So I brought this because I assumed it was going to be time to submit the expression of interest for the Urban Agenda Grant while we were doing the other grants. Looking further, they've removed the Urban Agenda Grant from the One Stop for Growth process. It'll stand alone, but while we were in discussion about the potential MassWorks grant, this dovetails with that project. My idea was years ago for us to update the benches and the pocket park at Main Street and Central there. And we were working with Bay Path to get those replaced. Mark Karen was carrying that forward, but I think because of COVID, we weren't able to get the work done, unfortunately. And so at this point, I'd love to just go ahead and make the purchase and not risk the delay in light of us going forward with the other construction in that area. I feel like it would be an eyesore against new development if we didn't replace that. And then you'll also have, for instance, Cornerstone across the street will be doing their own renovations. So, it would be a good highlight to the neighborhood. And I'm not looking for anything extravagant, just new benches, updates on the walls, the features, and VHB will provide us a sketch that would complement the MassWorks work that they'll be doing right on Central.
I'm a little confused. Are you asking to submit this grant or not?
Yeah. Oh, what I'm initially, the reason I'm saying this is because I say in the documentation, this is not part of the One Stop for Growth anymore. It's its own grant. The grant application isn't even out yet, but because we're talking about the MassWorks project that's happening right there, may I also have permission when that grant application opens up to go ahead and apply?
Oh, I see. Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Council?
No, I think I'm still confused.
Okay.
I'm not really sure what we're voting on now.
To when
Okay,
the
so-
application is available for the Urban Agenda Grant,
Mhm.
can I have permission to apply to be able to create a pocket park at Main Street and Central?
or to not create a pocket park. Take the pocket park that's there with the, the 12 benches and update it.
That's right in front of Savers Bank.
I know,
Right,
I know what it is.
To
It's
be
just-
designed
it's just- I-
to be designed in harmony
Yeah.
with what we're about to do, starting at Main and
So-
Central with the MassWorks grant.
Okay, so the urban agenda grant is just something separate,
Mhm.
right? And you're just looking for approval to apply for it?
Mhm.
Okay. And it's the $50,000 that's
Mhm.
listed in the agenda. Okay. I think I get that now. Thank you.
Sorry to confuse.
Counselor?
I'm not opposed to doing the pocket park. The difficulty I have is the fact of the lack of maintenance that is done there now. And also the fact that all the benches throughout the main street are gone. There was one across the street in front of the bank that disappeared, I think, this late fall. And it doesn't go back.
When you say disappeared, may I, through you, Chair, just get clarification? When you say disappeared, do you mean we removed it during construction?
No, I don't believe, no, I was sitting on there up in the fall, it was after construction was done. And one in front of the corners, like the bank across the street from this house.
So,
So, but they've disappeared, you can see where they used to be. They used to, I think they took it out because, I'm not gonna say why, but it was like, I could believe 2 of them there, that was the last 2 that were remaining there, and they're gone. And
This is the first I've heard of it, so.
well, I'm not complaining, but.
No,
I'm
no,
just
no,
saying
no,
it's
I'm just
gone.
wondering, I don't believe we did, it could have been the bank that took them out?
I don't believe so, I believe it was DPW, but I could be wrong.
I'll follow up on that, because I wasn't
And-
aware of
But
it.
all the other ones, where their platforms were, there's just vacant cement now, that they're gone. I mean, if we wanna make this a destination, we should dress our main street up. It's a focal point of our town, our community, and it's really in tough shape. The trees are all overgrown. We had the DPW guy come in here one time, Chenault, or Denault was his name. And it was the first thing he did was trimmed all the trees away from the buildings, and Main Street looked pretty good. But it hasn't been done since. And he put Christmas lights up. Half of them working, half of them don't, the wires are hanging down. If we're gonna make one little section nice, why don't we make the whole section through maybe a MassWorks grant or something? Because as you come into town, Main Street is gonna be, you want it to be our focal point. And if we're not gonna maintain it, I don't wanna waste the money there, I'll be honest with you.
I think you, excuse me, I think you make a good point, that, we need to have an all-encompassing, overarching view of everything, to get a sense of scope as to all the different areas that need to be done. And then another elephant, nip at it a little bit at a time, like you're talking about the Christmas lights and maybe trimming back some of the foliage, fixing the park, making the changes on Central Street like we're talking about potentially making, if that's possible. I think that's a good point that you bring up, and that's something that's gonna be a larger, more long-lasting picture than just something that can be, just started right now. But I think you can look at it definitely and start the process of
My concern is that we're gonna concentrate right there and forget everything else. Once it's done, we're gonna move down.
no, I think
know what
I
I'm
think you
saying?
make a good point, the whole entire Main Street, from Globe down to East Main, down to the Rotary, the whole
Yep.
thing, I think we need to look at the whole area.
Simple things that we can do, trimming of the trees.
Right,
We can do that. They haven't been done since that gentleman left,
I agree. Yeah.
Sidewalks, go walk the sidewalks, there's some of them are death traps, for crying out loud. When you get old like us, trip hazards happen, and we don't, so, I guess that's,
Okay, no, you make
just my
sense.
point to be made.
You make sense, Canada?
Well, just for you, in regards to the trees, we just lost that $1 million grant, and that was, her focus was urban trees, urban forestry, that was the target. And the federal government take away that $1 million.
And I understand.
No, I'm just saying, I mean, that would have been that was the plan going forward, was to maintain those trees and be able to hire. So now we have to regroup because what we had planned, it was the vision to take care of those trees all in that area with that $1 million grant. That was the inventory, the maintenance, the pruning, that was all part of her mission. And now that that grant got taken away 3 days ago, we now have to regroup, and your point is well taken. We will now look at those trees and say, okay, what is the plan going forward for those trees?
We shouldn't have to wait 10 years for a project that should be done every year by our own people.
Well, okay, I don't want to argue,
Right.
but what I'm saying is,
We're
I've
off
been,
topic,
I've been,
please.
no, we're talking about downtown, but we had a plan in place in the 18 months that I've been, or 16 months that I've been in town manager,
Yeah.
right? Now we have to regroup,
Yeah, I
okay?
understand.
You know, so I will take your concerns. In fact, I had no idea about the benches and that, and it's a point well taken. If that is part of it, we will look at those benches, okay? And it's a point well taken, so, thank you.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? All those,
The one thing I just want to assure people of is, remember I started with the Central Street parking lot, and that has since been well maintained.
It has.
And we would like to see going forward sort of that's the same approach, bit by bit. The other opportunity we could have in the future is through CDBG funds doing downtown beautification. So the Slumlight survey that you all helped contribute to also has metrics in there about the condition of the downtown, the garbages and the benches and things like that. I would like to see the light poles repainted, and I would like to see the garbages replaced. And not this year, but maybe next year. That would be good.
Yeah.
Okay.
okay. Any further discussion? Very well. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Unanimous of all present. Item number 5, review discuss the submission of a MassWorks grant expression of interest for $5,500,000 to reconstruct the portions of Hamilton Street, Central Street, and Foster Street nearest to Main Street, and if approved, proceed with the full application and allow the town manager to sign all related paperwork, entertain a motion to recommend to town council for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
I'll start on this one. So,
Okay, very good.
this came about as part of discussions that we had last year around the expression of interest when Mr. Norton had come to us about putting in some MassWorks grants for that complex down there. And we said at that time, there are other areas of town that we wanted to concentrate on, because we had one MassWorks in there, we had another MassWorks in another section of town. So what could we do in the downtown district? There's a lot of conversation about, given the fact that the TIP project is on the La Rochelle Way end, how could we look at the upper Central Street because of the restaurants that are going into that area? How could we look from Main Street down to where the TIPs are and come up with grant monies for that? One of the concepts that Chairman Lazo had said, and we had topics of conversation, was perhaps we could look into putting the electrical lines underground on Central Street. That was a concept, right? The initial estimate for that is $2.9 million that would come from us, So we have that opportunity now to take a look at that area. There's conversation about moving it one-way directions with the former DPW director and all that. So I think this is part of the work that we've worked with VHB to do this and put this expression of interest in to concentrate on that area. Mm-hmm. So what we're trying to do is, to Councilor Shaney's point, how are we improving different areas, right? Mm-hmm. How are we going from down at, from one section of town to the next section of town, and how are we putting that together along with the rail trail, right?
Yep.
So you're looking at different areas. You come in from Sturbridge and you see that big Bunny had done upgrades, and some of the apartment complexes that are there, they're being repaired, and then you came over the hill, and then it goes down to the complex, and Big Y has done improvements, and with the innovation center with those improvements, how is this all connected? So the concentration for this expression of interest was to try to do something in that in the center core, mm-hmm. and improve that going down, and for development there as well.
I do have Greg Russell
Yes.
on the line for questions,
So.
in case any of them come up.
But that is the vision. To put in the expression of interest, is it viable if we're, and then put the grant in. So that's what we're trying to look at.
Okay. Councilors?
I don't have any questions. I think it's a good idea.
Okay.
We've kind of ignored the downtown for way too long.
Council?
No questions?
All set? All set? Okay, guess we're good.
So Greg Russell, so he would design it, obviously in conjunction with the already designed tip project. So they're just extending those branches of Hamilton, Central, and Foster down to Main Street. It dovetails perfectly with the tip project timing. There is a potential option with the burying the lines. You might have a couple of different options.
Right.
To try to reduce the cost, because the tip project may view burying the lines as a holdup on the tip. Yeah, even though it would be the ideal. And they can help us work through those questions.
But that was an option, and that's why we're talking about how can we make it look and design it so that we improve it.
Councilor?
I do have a question. I mean, this is, it goes to the piecemeal issue that Council Cheney raised. Is there, so we have a master plan?
We do have a
Dollars?
master plan, yeah, and what Greg Russell, I'm sorry, if I may, thank you. We do have a list of all the projects in an image that I brought to the last Southbridge Business Partnership meeting, for instance, that I'll have in the annual report that kind of shows all of the work from the AO over to Hamilton, and the slated funding sources to kind of bring it all together. It shows how the vision over the next 3 years will really start to come to fruition.
So anyway, we could get,
The master plan itself is outdated. It's from 2013. It is on my capital improvement items. However, because this year we're already doing an open space plan, a housing production plan, and urban renewal plan amendment, those 3 plans are in and of themselves some work. We're looking to do the master plan in the next year or 2 when we can get grant funding for it. But the overall vision, you know, from the master plan and the urban renewal plan, this is all in line with that redevelopment of the downtown. The making it into one-ways was actually part of, if you remember, the original urban renewal plan, and then I think they backed out of it. And so now it's interesting that we're coming back to that idea. I love the way Chairman Lazo described it as a restaurant row.
Okay.
I think the big thing too with using the Central Street project is the people, restaurants are anxious for this. They're really anxious. They see the problem with having traffic going 2 ways. They see the traffic with parking on both sides, and they vision increased business by that thought of being able to do outside seating and stuff. So I think it's a good vision. But as far as the master plan that was done many, many years ago, I mean, if you look at it, it's not even close to what is happening. It's totally.
Hence needing an update.
Right, I mean, it's had buildings being knocked down as far as that, looking at the right master plan.
Urban renewal plan.
Urban renewal plan, they were knocking buildings down and moving things along, and that's all changed altogether.
And that's why we're amending it.
Right.
Yes. Sorry.
Okay.
Thank you.
Welcome. Anyone else? Very good. All those in favor? None opposed? Unanimous of all present.
Thanks, Craig.
That was easy. Okay, item number 7, review discuss the timely expenditure waiver from the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities for the Community Development Block Grant fiscal year 22-23 grant year to allow us to then apply for the Community Development Block Grant fiscal year 25 grant year and authorize the town manager to sign all related paperwork and entertain a motion to recommend to town council for approval.
so moved.
Second.
Thank you, gentlemen.
I'll defer to
Okay, good, thank you.
It's a formality we go through every year to be able to apply for our grants because we have A backlog of projects, staff turnover, in the DPW and the finance department kind of held up a couple of our projects. And we look forward to catching up on them moving forward. This year's grant, however, is admin heavy, as I described to Jack. It's the housing rehab and commercial rehab, which can still take a lot of time. So I don't predict we will have sales through this current grant round on time either.
Okay. Questions? Councilor Marquetti.
Thank you, through you. So my question is, how come we haven't spent on this money? We have all the things that we just talked about that need to be done downtown, and how come we haven't spent the money?
I'll give you an example. River Crane Street was approved back in calendar 2021, and it's just starting now. And that's out of my control. I am not the one, it's the DPW that's the one that really calls the shots of when we're ready to go.
That's not 50%.
No, but that is a good example. That's $480,000 of my fiscal year 21 grant that's sitting there waiting to be spent. The fiscal year 22-23 is a giant 2-year grant of 1.65 million, and that's this housing rehab, commercial rehab where I was just talking about. It's heavy on the admin. We have a brand new CDBG coordinator. It's a brand new program for us, so we're having to learn the program. It hasn't been done since 2015 in this town, and so that in itself is taking a lot of effort to launch.
Okay, I mean, but there's still a lot of problems downtown that I would think some of these funding should go to and should have happened by now.
Well, the CDBG, the last year's CDBG is for the North Street area, so that work will be looking to get the scope for the paving and the repairs for that, so that would be that area.
Is that gonna happen this year?
Mm-hmm.
That's the hope, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Then why would you need a delay if it's gonna
No, this
happen?
is the 22-23 area, yeah.
And the fiscal year 21, I'm asking for permission just in case.
So that doesn't cover the North Street.
No,
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 that's,
FY24 was this, we're not even into that. It's misleading because the way the fiscal years go, because you're talking.
it's labeled.
Yeah, it's
Fiscal
labeled the
year-
fiscal year, but it's not actually the fiscal year.
So
We
what
get that.
projects from 22-23 have not been accomplished?
Housing rehab, we have $450,000 to spend on likely somewhere between 6 and 9 houses. We have commercial rehab, which we're looking to spend between maybe 5 and 8 businesses, $500,000. And code enforcement, unfortunately, we just lost a code enforcement. We're waiting to spend it on our building inspector. And 22-23 is the open space and recreation plan, which is in progress, but it's still proportionately much less money than the housing and commercial rehab.
And I don't mean to keep this going, I just was curious as what is the hang up with these things?
If I may, through you, Chair, we have a brand new CDBG coordinator as of September. We hired a housing rehab specialist, where the two of them are trying to learn together how to launch this program. When it comes to commercial rehab, she struggled with the first quotes she came out in November with. Didn't get construction bids back that she was hoping for. That's pretty parallel with when there's a good private construction industry. It's harder to get public construction bids and quotes, especially in the smaller scale, because they have to deal with what comes with our grants is the paperwork, the prevailing wages, whatever other requirements that might deter them.
If I may, Mr. These smaller jobs are hard to find contract. We're struggling to find somebody to do the exhaust fan in the community center for the kitchen because they term it a small job. So, and because we are prevailing wage, the vendors are saying, well, it's not a big enough job for this, so they're reluctant to bid on it. So it's been a struggle on this kind of public bidding for these kind of smaller projects.
So what happens if you could never do it then? What happens?
What's that?
You're gonna lose the money?
If I may, through you, Chair, for example, from the 20 and 21 code enforcement money that because we never filled those positions and we had the extra money, we took the opportunity to reprogram the funds for Main Street Playground. However, it took us 8 months
9 months.
just to get the amendment and the all the requirements, the environmental review and all that comes with CDBG and heavy admin to actually go forward with the project. But it's I think I've said it every time we always come for approvals of these projects. We never want to leave money on the table.
Okey-doke. I'm set.
So I
Thank you.
just,
Go ahead.
question, I mean, for these smaller projects and the bidding process, isn't there a more streamlined way we can do this? Do we have to, since it's a small project, we have to comply with all the prevailing wage laws and everything else?
If I may, through you. So I just had a conversation with the CDBG coordinator today saying, I have an unconventional brain, as you probably have all figured out. I have said the sky's the limit when it comes to procurement strategies, if we can stay within the law. If that means we line up a whole bunch of roof jobs to do them all as one big bid, right? We package them as one big bid. If we have to take a couple of projects and package them together to make a bigger opportunity for somebody, we'll look for the ways to streamline it. Right now, we're launching, so we're just getting into the attempts, but then as we learn our first lessons, we'll re-strategize, which is what we did actually after the first quote, for instance, for housing rehab. Housing rehab, we went out as one big contract. We got nothing back, or nothing that was gonna meet our budgets. And so we broke it out into the specials and said, okay, let's go for a roofer, let's go for a lead abater, and let's see what comes back. And so we're just, we're trying different strategies. I feel confident because I do have the MCPPO certification in procurement. I feel confident trying different strategies. I'm not intimidated by it, but unfortunately, everything takes time.
And unfortunately, when it comes to public funds, yes, you are required, and those parameters, there's no way about it. For instance, if we wanted, some of the smaller jobs in the town, they are, so to Peg's point, different strategies and all that. But we do have to follow the procurement procedures, regardless of.
Right, I just was wondering if there was an exception to the law here, and because
There are some exceptions.
I know a little bit about federal procurement from my time in the military, and
Yeah.
it seemed like we had some exceptions, especially where it came with like small dollar items. But
If I may, through you,
mhm.
So there are two instances. One's if you're an owner-operator, one-man show, or one-woman show, you are allowed to pay yourself whatever you want, but you still have to fill out the paperwork, unfortunately. And then the other circumstance is in housing rehab, actually. We don't pay prevailing wage. So that is not one of the things holding up our housing rehab, but it's affecting the commercial rehab. And that is because the state has said, make the contract between the owner and the contractor, stay out of it, and then let them not pay prevailing wages, only when it's residential housing, for the sake of our residents.
It's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, procurement is a
A beast.
beast. It is a beast. You try to do something so simple,
What's that? Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Thank you, gentlemen. 3-0.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 8. Review, discuss entering into an agreement with BSC Group for $255,750 using Mass Works funds to design Phase 2 of River Crane Street and authorize the town manager to sign all related paperwork. Entertain a motion to recommend to town council for approval.
So,
Second.
Oh, did it feel like- Here we go. Okay.
So this is just, we're starting River Crane 1. We were fortunate enough to secure $2.7 million for Phase 2, so we have to do the design for that. So
For Phase 2.
this would be give us
Okay.
design and be able to go out to bid. And BSC Group was who did Phase 1, so this is just a likely continuation to do.
So you've already got feet on the ground.
They do, and they already have, a lot of it was mirrored because they had to design for 1, so they have a lot of the history of the road and the infrastructure and all that.
Is the bridge itself going to get touched, or is it up to the bridge and then from the bridge down?
I believe it's up to the bridge, over the bridge, and the bank in there. But that bank will be shored up. That's the big key component of this project, is that washout area.
Okay.
And that will dovetail into the Pleasant Street area that will then go into Mill Street with the other bridges that you talked
The
about.
bridges are going, you know.
Right.
Correct. If I may through you, this has already been brought to 25% design by VHB. I asked that they sever their contract with us and not make another change order, because for grant purposes, it's just very clean if I'm paying out of one fund if it's a brand new contract. So this will be a new contract for the 75% design. So when Jack says that they're already entrenched, they've done the 25% design, that was able to secure the Mass Works in the first place.
Very good.
So we don't have, sorry.
Good.
Thank you, through you, Jim. So we don't have to send this out to bid again for this new design?
If I may through you, Chair, you do not have to bid design. It's exempt.
Is
from-
it exemption?
Yes.
There you go.
Yes.
You know, architecture, design,
Engineering.
engineering, auditors, you know, there's a whole list if you look at chapter 30B of what you can exempt out of. This is one of them.
And we do, at a best practice, oftentimes still go out for requests for proposals. But in this instance, when they've already done the 25% design and they've already done phase one, it seems like a no-brainer.
I thought we had moved some money for this purpose last year at some time. Didn't we take some money from construction oversight and move it into design?
You have as your next motion.
I don't know. I know, I doubt if it was this much money, but
No, I think it was just
So
for the,
what you're thinking of is potentially with the construction oversight for the rail trail, and then we're sharing BSC group construction oversight. Didn't this come up with Butch's conversation about project manager you were talking about it
but
then?
didn't we take some of the money and?
no, to do the 25% design, what did we take the money from for that?
You got me.
I think it could have been for the first 25, for the initial design.
So
And I don't know
for-
if we took it from chapter 90 for the initial
For some
design.
Hamilton
or-
Street all the way down to the bridge was about the same amount of money, no? And from the bridge to Pleasant Street, it's the same amount of money? It
No,
seems like
it's,
about-
no, it's 2
an awful
million,
lot.
it's 2 million, well, yeah, it's 2.7. Yeah, it's about 2.7 with all of it, right?
Yeah.
But, yeah, we're about 2.7 on that, yeah.
Right.
I don't
With water
remember-
sewer, this, we don't have any water sewer allocated out of any enterprise funds for phase 2 on this.
Right.
So that, I mean, phase 1, we did have water money, we did have sewer, some
Okay.
sewer money, I believe, water money, and then the Mass Works.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, all those in favor? There you go. Okay, item number 9. Approve the use of $60,000 in Chapter 90 funds for police details during River and Crane Street construction. Entertain a motion to recommend to Town Council for approval.
Motion.
Second.
Thank you, gentlemen.
I apologize for the lengthy email I attached. I did not mean to include all of that. This is just anticipated before Hannah left. I was meeting with them to try to figure out where the gaps in funding were. This is one of the last. They thought that they potentially, Hannah, for some reason, thought there might be $50,000 from the water department that was going to be able to cover police detail. But after finding out from Steve Gregar, we only have about $5,000 coming from them. We need the additional funding. And so Rich had suggested the $60,000 from Chapter 90. And just trying to ensure things don't fall by the wayside.
How many ones have included in the bid?
So one of the bid strategies is to keep the police detail out so that we can pay the police detail directly rather than having it go through the contractor. Because otherwise then there's like an extra 10%
10%
admin markup. So that's just a strategy to keep the project as low as possible. Why we didn't budget for it is a better question, because we should have all of our funding in line. But sometimes what happens is we have a ballpark of what we think the project is going to cost, and then everything is sort of hinging on how the bid comes in. So, there's a couple different approaches DPWs take to these projects.
But I think with this project, we inherited a few projects that, you know, were tough to figure out where the funding was, West Street, South Street. You know, we struggled with police details on those and where they came in and they weren't planned for. Here, we're planning for the details ahead of time to make sure that, again, to the point that our budget is tight.
So are we paying the town rate or are we paying the construction rate?
Whatever the rate is out of the contract, the police contract, they have it out.
Right, but they got town jobs that are paid one rate, I believe.
I'd have to verify what the rate is, but they go.
Because if we're paying this as a town job, then I don't think we should be paying the rate of
Yeah,
private entity.
we'll double check what rate it is, so.
And these details are necessary in all these projects? But by, is there a statute requirement? What's? Yeah.
So for instance, like on the rail trail right now, my engineer will say, for the Morris Street work that's happening right now, we need to get police detail out there to make sure that that's manned. So, you know, sometimes it's the construction oversight's job to make sure that that police is covering the appropriate times.
I have to say, we're the only state in the union, I think, that has police details for everything.
You don't
I mean,
have to have it.
And I don't understand it. I mean, because they don't really seem to add anything to the project. When I remember when we were in England and Ireland a couple of years ago, they don't even have anybody. They just have lights. They put up street lights, temporary street lights. You know, you get a signal and people go. There's no police in any construction
Yeah, but they
project.
drive on the wrong side of the road.
You know, but I mean, it's in, you know, and you go anywhere else in the country, all right, you won't see police details on construction projects. You won't. You'll see, you know, you'll see basically construction workers, flagmen.
We can use
Yeah.
flag, we can use flaggers.
So
No,
it
you
just seems,
won't.
it seems like an.
It's in the contract, it's in the union contract.
Oh, well, okay.
Yeah,
So
right.
it seems like a waste of money to me.
I
So,
think we need to look at the union contract to see if it actually says it's gonna be, I believe the chief of police makes that decision. And I think the contract just tells you what you're gonna pay them. I don't think the contract determines who's gonna be on the job or not. Because that's where the civilian traffic cops came in. Because they weren't getting cops.
that's right. So,
So the civilian traffic cops are different than flaggers too, because flaggers are cheaper than the civilian traffic cops.
Right.
That's something that needs to be looked at for the future.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
if I may.
Right.
The flagger police detail controversy has been a long time on both sides. I do know the police don't go looking for details because they have so many that are requested. They don't have enough staff to cover them all. So it's not like the police are saying, I want 5 guys out there. It's the contractor that's saying, I'm doing this and I need 1 or 2 police officers. It's the contractor that's, and believe me, they don't want to pay any more than they have to. You also have to look at, because we're a prevailing wage state, the price of a flagger sometimes is more than what it costs for a police officer detail. No, it does. You have to look at the prevailing wage. Trust me, because you not only are you paying the rate of the flagger, but then you have to pay their benefits, their union, and all that. So that where it adds on, where we're just paying an hourly rate. I'll get the exact figures, but that has been no, that's I just know from experience that has been.
It just,
Believe me, details.
You got-
I was a former police chief. I didn't like details. I wanted to make sure if a detail was needed, then it was needed. If it wasn't needed, then you didn't put somebody out there.
You're tying up an officer on a car likely, it just seems like a waste of money.
No, these aren't officers, are
Well, we use both, but that's a whole other conversation. But we do charge an administrative fee as well. So it's that we charge, on it for if there's a cruiser that covers the cost of gas and all that. So,
Just-
food for thought. Yes, we will look at it.
They passed the flagger law in Massachusetts. The state police were adamant against it because of the turnpike. The biggest complaints that were flaggers versus police back then was the fact that the police spent their time looking in the hole and not actually watching the traffic. The state police was successful in its day to require state police on the turnpike, state highways, and those kind of things, and then allow the communities, the secondary roads, to use flaggers or police.
Right. And if I, as a last point
Yep.
on this, I do know the police chief had come, I think before council when we had the South Street project, and had worked with the union because they could not fill it, to allow the contractor, if they had to use flaggers.
Yep.
That was part of it. So there has been a combination, because there are so many details. And unfortunately, the younger generation doesn't do the details as much as it used to be. So, yes, so there's a strategy on both, but it's all driven by the project and safety of the construction workers. That's who's driving the request for details. It's by the construction company and their need for safety.
I just don't understand why we don't see this anywhere else in the country. I mean,
That
I just.
that is a, I won't deny.
Every, no, I'll get off the topic.
Councilor Kennedy.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think if it's a private construction, then they pay for the details, but this is a public construction, so the town has to pay for it, and I think 60,000 is probably reasonable for that amount of work down there. I mean, I don't know how long this project is gonna go on, but I wouldn't doubt if it goes on for a year or so. Am I right?
No, River Crane should be done by,
September, November,
Yeah.
somewhere. I think November was the target
Okay.
for that.
yeah.
This year.
Knock on wood?
Yep. They should be starting sewer relining pretty soon.
Yeah, they've made purchases, I'm supposed to be
Yeah.
spending down a ton of money in the next month.
All right.
So,
Very good.
Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor? Against? Okay, 2-1. Very good. Item number 10. Review, discuss the submission of a community planning grant expression of interest for $150,000 to support a pattern zoning initiative for accessory dwelling units and infill development. Entertain a motion to recommend to town council for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Can I ask one question, why this didn't go to general gov and why it came to planning and development? The ADU bylaw went to general gov, and I just believe this is some kind of extension of it, and it should have gone to general gov.
Clarification?
One of you.
This is a one-stop for growth grant application for a plan, it's a potential planning exercise through the planning department to be able to create planning tools related to the ADU.
So the planning tools are bylaws.
The planning, the bylaw is one thing the town will adopt. We're trying to look at other tools the town can implement to be able to maintain the character of the town, unrelated to adopting the bylaw.
It's unrelated to the bylaw.
Unrelated to adopting the bylaw through a
Okay.
Gen Gov process. This is a
So-
planning tool through the planning department.
So, I'll let you go to discussion.
Okay. Katie?
Yeah, so a little background on this as a planning initiative. Regardless of if the town has an accessory dwelling unit bylaw in place, the Massachusetts Affordable Homes Act went into effect earlier this month, so ADUs are allowed by right anywhere that a single-family home would be allowed by right. And the state has made it very clear that there are very few restrictions on these types of units. And that includes in aesthetic qualities, in general location, beyond just following what is code for building construction. But an alternative that the town could have to sort of encourage the growth they would like to see with these units that are probably coming regardless of whatever goes into effect in terms of a bylaw, you can, the town could follow a pattern zoning initiative, which would look at current types of housing and what would match those types of housing. And it could vary across neighborhoods. Southbridge has a mix of rural and urban development. and there might be different types of housing that would fit either of those areas well. This initiative is sort of based on one that was taking place in Lebanon, New Hampshire, where they did a planning process looking at their current development and then came up with a set of plans that were free to the public so that homeowners in the town could have these engineered plans that they could then use to build their own accessory dwelling units and other types of small infill development. Yeah.
Okay. Questions? Council McKay.
Okay, through you, Mr. Chair. First of all, was there any paperwork that was supposed to come with this one? Because I didn't receive anything. Agenda item number 10, there's nothing in the packet.
There's
Here's this, I see it in the packet, right here. So there's a memo, it's the last 2 pages.
Okay.
Do you
well,
see
I
it?
didn't receive any of that.
One Stop for
no.
Growth Community Planning Application, and then in the second page, it talks about the pattern zoning from Lebanon, New Hampshire. There's a snapshot from the page and a link to be able to access their website.
I didn't receive any of that. So.
Okay. Did anybody else receive?
I didn't get it.
I get it from you.
Oh, that's peculiar, because I'm pulling this right from the packet that Matt
Oh, it's in the
attached to the calendar.
It's not the last
It's
page
in the
I,
calendar.
Last 2 pages, no?
no, the last page I have is
Number 9.
It's emails.
emails,
No,
yeah.
it's the
54, the
two after
total
that.
packet for me is 54 pages.
Did you get the packet from the calendar or just straight from Matt?
Straight from that.
Straight from that.
Yeah, if you go to the calendar packet, it's there, but we'll make sure that everybody gets it, obviously.
That's the problem that we have with our agendas, where you go, one time we get them from then we go, the calendar is different.
And that's I had
It's not
requested it.
you.
No, that might be my fault, because I had requested Matt put it in the calendar for ease of access.
Okay, so
Yeah, so I don't know if it created an inconsistency, so I apologize.
what's the committee's wish?
I don't think you
could
probably.
also run some copies.
You don't have,
Do you want-
okay,
yeah,
would you
sure.
like to discuss it?
Well,
All right.
Do you want her
Counselor?
to copy the memo right now and bring it back, or do you want to be able to?
yeah, it'd be fine. Thank you. So what exactly is a pattern zoning?
While we're waiting,
Okay.
can you come back if I may,
On,
this particular item?
okay,
My concern is, for some unknown reason, we base our decisions on, this one is in New Hampshire. We're making some kind of decisions on something in New Hampshire, where the Massachusetts ADU law is totally different from state to state. And I don't know if this particular item that you're bringing forward tonight is going to stem development of ADUs or trying to stop development of ADUs. Contrary to what the state allows ADUs regardless by right in a single-family zone, so wherever single families are allowed. The bylaw that they write is very explicit on what is allowed, what is not allowed, and what could be suggested as far as buildings and those kind of things. We approved the bylaw that's pretty big, I guess it's workable and it will be up for discussion, but I guess that without having that paper, what is this actually what you're trying to do?
So it would not be what Lebanon, New Hampshire is doing, because they had a very specific planning process that looked at what their neighborhoods are like and what would benefit them. So what we would be doing is looking at what our neighborhoods are like and what would be good for Southbridge. And that's the whole purpose of having it as a planning process, is it's not necessarily to encourage or discourage, it's just the reality that this is a law now and people can build them regardless, but we can offer them this as a resource that both helps them have quality plans that they can build on, and can help the town sort of guide what kind of development it would like to see.
And that's I guess my point is that you're looking to control what type of development is going to be done on the ADUs. So if is the bylaw gonna say what type of housing, say for instance, like for me, if I wanted to bring an ADU on my son's property, I can bring a tiny house, something that ties down to a foundation. The town may not like it, or the neighborhood might not like what's sitting on that property, but it's allowable. Is this going to stop that?
No, no one is going to be required to build anything. It is just creating more options for people to have, so they have access to build these. And these are just suggestions of what could be built.
So the town's not, this is not an attempt by the town to say, no, we're not gonna have an ADU on Sale Street, for instance. because
No,
It doesn't
they-
fit in the neighborhood.
The town cannot do that.
Okay.
Okay, let's start with Councilor Marquetti, he was up first.
Oh, apparently it's on the back here. What is pattern zoning? I just want to explain that.
Yeah, it's actually a type of zoning that was a lot more popular at the beginning of the 1900s, and sort of is coming back now in terms of choosing certain types of buildings and incorporating them into certain neighborhoods. Sort of, if you are familiar with like Sears and Roebuck houses, that's sort of that concept of like having sort of set types of buildings for areas.
And infill housing, what does that mean?
So that's just a term for where you already have development in town and that there are empty lots, trying to fill in those lots versus developing undeveloped land. So where the town already has, say like infrastructure, roads, sewer, water, it's less energy and expense to build into those areas than to build completely new.
And pattern zoning would help that?
So the intention of infill development and sort of the state's use of this act to put in more smaller units is to have greater density, have more units in a neighborhood than currently are without making huge new like multi-story developments. It's sort of like a gentle increase in that density. So these options as infill or as ADU would just offer options for residents to do that.
So pattern zoning would be like, you would have one design for a zone, and it would make it easier for somebody to build because they've already got the design, they've got everything set up for it, and they don't have to pay the expense of, paying for somebody to design their
Yes,
ADU or whatever.
exactly, and they wouldn't be required to have to do that, but it would just be offered there as an option in that zone.
Could I chime in on that comment? So without misleading, that we're not trying to incentivize the ADUs by putting this in place. We're using the carrot approach to influence when they are going to put one in. Because we have a very pretty town, and we don't want to see our very pretty town suddenly have these, ragtag little random units sticking up in our neighborhoods. And so a way to influence this would be to create these designs in character. Katie's brilliant. I'm so glad we got her. When she brought this idea forward, I was very impressed. I hope the town considers it.
So,
But what you think is ragtag may not be ragtag to somebody else.
That's right, and that's not for me to tell someone what to build and not to build, but if we could, in a very gentle way, be encouraging people to still design. For instance, think about the downtown. We've got the luck of Doug Yaffe redeveloping the carriage house behind 205 Main Street. And instead of changing it or, doing minimum. He's enhancing the look of the carriage house because that's such a gorgeous complement to the downtown. If we could think of designs like the carriage house look in maybe the downtown, that would really complement. I think about Rhinebeck, New York has a lot of these carriage houses. They're gorgeous. You're actually beautifying your downtown if you were to encourage a design like that. And maybe that's only appropriate in the very downtown. Maybe outside of town it would be something different. But again, it's not for us to say what people should and shouldn't do. It's just from a planner's perspective, what tools do we have to be able to help influence the look and feel of our town?
Wouldn't you think that'd be a little difficult though, because the housing around town is so different from each other, and you want to make something which is like a cookie cutter design, everything look the same. I mean, I agree, it would make it cheaper for the person who's going to put the house in, but I would think it'd be a little difficult, but I'm all set, thank you.
All set? Councilor Kelly?
Thank you. So I guess, really, we were gonna have a portfolio essentially of designs that we are gonna tell people are permit ready, all right, that we'll give to them, or they'll have to purchase them, or I'm not really sure, but that would save a step. I assume that even with the ADUs, you'll have to get a building permit, and you'll have to have some kind of design for the building permit, right? So-
Yeah, the intention would be that if you decided to use one of these, the building department would have an easier time of just,
granting a permit,
yeah.
without having to go through a significant review. So, okay, I'm just concerned that we might be getting a little ahead of over our skis on this, because we don't have any experience with the ADU law yet, so we don't really know where it's going and how people are going to utilize it. I think it's an interesting idea. I like it, but I'm just a little concerned that we may be premature in going, well, let's get some experience with the ADU first, and then maybe we should proceed with something like this.
All set?
Yeah.
Okay. Peg and then George.
Dare I ask where the harm may lie in us potentially going forward with that?
I'm not sure there is a harm, but I don't know. There are so many unknowns at this point, so I just don't think we have any experience with this ADU. So.
Let's hold on. Let's get George.
My concern is, I don't know if Massachusetts has a patent zones in Massachusetts. Again, this paperwork is based on Lebanon, New Hampshire, a different state altogether. If you read the patent zone that they're talking about, what is patent zone, it talks about Lebanon, New Hampshire, city of Lebanon. This is Southbridge. I don't know if Massachusetts has a patent or is allowed a patent zoning to begin with. So, and the other thing I have a problem with is more government. We start by saying, oh, we're not, you're not being forced to go by this. We're making suggestions to go, that you can do this. And if you don't want to do it, that's fine. You can go, do it the way, as long as you follow within the law. I just think we're adding more confusion and more government to the simple little guy that wants to do something different, that wants to help their family out. I'm in that situation. I'm not building an ADU because I don't want to go through all the bull crap, to be honest with you, for an ADU. We're making a second apartment out of it, so it'll be a two-family, less headache. But, so I just don't want people to get the conception that I'm fighting against this because it's an ADU and that's what I'm doing. We're too much government and everything that comes down. Now, this might be a great thing when, you don't want a log cabin built in the center of town. I understand that kind of thing. Should there be some type of controls like that? Maybe so. But this ADU law was passed for a specific reason and restricted for a specific reason. because too many cities and towns wants to control and prevent it from happening. And I don't wanna see our town do that. And I'm not saying this is gonna prevent it, but is it gonna hinder somebody? Is it gonna make somebody have second thoughts about doing it? I don't know. But that's, the ADU law was made so restrictive because of the towns and the elected officials that don't want to have them in their community. So they made it very well a restrictive law. In the event that a citizen wants to challenge that law, the community has to put up $250,000 bond before they go to court. Otherwise, the courts will rule in their favor. So the town has a big responsibility on saying why you want to fight this thing, you know? So I just think it's another bureaucracy level of something that's probably not needed. Maybe I can be convinced differently in the next few weeks, but, you know, we talked about it the other night. Munson. The paperwork we got mentioned Munson. Munson was kicked back to them for review. Today we're talking about something that they're utilizing Lebanon, New Hampshire. It may be a simple clerical thing, but I have difficulty looking at that when it comes from especially another state.
Okay, Peg, you had.
Yeah, sure. So the opinion, my opinion is that we've already got developers calling us, asking about this. We know that there are people who are interested in going forward with this quickly, and we don't have any power. The pattern zoning reference might be misleading, that we're making more zoning, but we're not. There's no new zoning, there's no legal ramifications to any of this. We're literally just trying to take something we have no power in and say, if you want to try to fit into the character of the neighborhood, here's a way you could do it. And so I think it's a harmless but a proactive approach to something that we otherwise have no power in.
So, if I understand you right, you're saying that someone could come to the planning board and say, I wanna build an ADU, do you have any suggestions? And you could say, yeah, here, but that's as far as it goes. I'm sorry. Katie.
They don't even have to go to the planning board. These would just be, they could send a request for a certain type of plan, and if they decided that that's what they wanted to go forward with, they could go forward with it because it was permit ready. And it would hopefully even save some steps in the process of having to work with the building department or get referred to the planning board.
I get the feeling that this is something like back in the day when there used to be newspapers, the Telegram on Sunday always had that house. And with the plans, and you can send away for a buck, you can send away for the plans.
Yeah.
Don't be right.
I looked at those.
Used to be some nice ones.
Yeah, you're right.
I used to dream about some of those.
Yeah, so that's basically it. You
That's
get
the
an email, and I wanna build an 850 square foot ADU. Do you have any suggestions of something that's ready made? You say, yes, here's something that you could consider, but you're under no obligation to use it. You can use your own plans, whatever, speak with the building inspector when the time comes. Done.
Yes, that's the intention.
Okay. I'm satisfied with what I needed to know. Councilor Kelly, you wish to say something?
Yes, I mean, I don't see any legal implications with regard to this at all. I mean, I'm just, I guess we're just planning, we're applying, we'd be applying for a grant on this, so it wouldn't cost the town anything. And then we would go out to somebody, I assume, that would do a study of the various areas of town and then create plans that would fit within our current zoning ordinances. Because the ADU, I mean, I don't think the ADU does not exempt any structure from the zoning ordinances.
It does. They do exempts some of the allowable uses in town. The ADU allows tiny houses.